Hello! Every season in Formula One, 20 of the best drivers compete. Just 20 out of hundreds, if not thousands of other professional drivers. And only 20 chosen among 8 billion people living on planet Earth. Becoming a Formula One driver is no easy task and is within reach, as you can see, only to a very limited circle of people. Motorsport is generally expensive and Formula One is incomparably expensive. So how do you become a Formula One driver? What path do you need to take and how much does it all cost? Let's figure it out. First of all, if you want to become an F1 driver, you should have started in childhood. For me, for example, I'm already almost 35. And a Formula One career probably won't happen for me anymore. But if you're plus minus 8 to 12 years old or your child is, then there's still a chance. Let's at least imagine what path we would have to take if at some point we and our parents decided to make Formula One drivers out of us. The most basic and most accessible entry into motorsport is, of course, karting. Rental karting now exists in almost every more or less large city. You can try your hand relatively inexpensively. Large circuits hold their own competitions and issue club licenses to operate more powerful karts. And in general, with regular practice, you can show pretty good results. At least by driving rental karts, you can understand whether there's any desire and predisposition for motorsport at all. But what's most important in motorsport? A fast car? Yes, but not only that. A lot of money? Undoubtedly yes, but money doesn't solve everything, though it helps a lot. Perhaps connections and administrative resources are important in motorsport? Well, to some extent, but no. The most important thing in motorsport is victories. You must always strive to win. If after months and years of training, even in rental karting, you're trailing at the back of the pack and can't overtake anyone, then you probably definitely won't become a Formula One driver. Even in rental karting, you can achieve certain results. Win championships, including international ones, win solid cash prizes, and possibly be noticed by someone. But for this, as you already understand, you need to be faster than everyone else. Already at this stage, you must pass a solid selection. But rental karting is all well and good, but it's very difficult to build an effective racing career from it, especially with an eye on Formula One. Therefore, if we want results, we need serious karting competitions. And here we immediately run into two limitations. First, it's money, 4,000 euros for a kart, another couple thousand for spare engines, plus tires, plus spare parts. And this is just the starting inventory, not counting participation in competitions. In short, 20,000, and in current realities, possibly all 30,000 euros are needed just to start. And then, participation in more or less serious competitions can easily cost 100,000 euros and above. There are no sponsors at this stage, as you understand. Perhaps after a few seasons, having immediately overtaken everyone somewhere. Having shown yourself as a young talent and future hope of all world motorsport, maybe you'll be noticed somewhere somehow by some academy or support program. But for this, you need to win, to invest a tidy sum from your pocket, or rather, obviously, your parents. But money alone is not enough. There's another limitation, geographical. We'll now omit the current world situation and imagine for a second that there are no political factors in your path to Formula One. The main problem is that if you want to build a serious career in motorsport, you must live in Europe. Ideally, Germany, Italy, or Great Britain. In Russia, this will be very difficult to do. The problem is not that everything is good there and everything is bad here. No, the problem is that motorsport has been developing in Europe for decades, if not more than a century. And in our country, it essentially only began gaining some popularity in the last 20-30 years. In Russia, there are significantly fewer opportunities and significantly less interest in motorsport than in Europe. Europe is currently the center of world motorsport. The best circuits, the best teams, and their academies are located here. Obviously, if you want to become one of the 20 best drivers in the world, then throughout your entire racing path, you must compete in the best competitions among the best drivers and on the best racetracks. Indian driver from Red Bull's Racing Academy Jahan Daruvala said in an interview, "In India, you might have 10 to 15 competitors. In Asia, their number can reach 30, while in Europe, you'll often see grids of 60-plus drivers. If you regularly make it to the top of European karting, then perhaps you have a chance in the future to try to get a foothold in F1. But this is by no means guaranteed. That same Daruvala was a bronze medalist at the World Karting Championship but never became an F1 driver. Already at this stage, it's clear that investments in a racing career reach hundreds of thousands of euros, and that this is entertainment for confident gentlemen. In Europe, it's a little easier because motorsport is developed there on a different level. So the starting path can cost much less. That same Sebastian Vettel started doing motorsport in an unknown German town of Kirpen, and his dad was a simple carpenter. Anyway, let's imagine that your parents have money. You move to live in Europe where you can calmly do karting. You show results, win some regional championships, and get into the World Karting Championship under the auspices of FIA. This is the highest level in karting. You're already basically a professional driver. Racing is your life. You're constantly under pressure and in fierce competition with other young drivers just like you. But at the same time, you're conditionally 14 years old and still just a child. Your entire childhood is continuous travel and competitions. And God forbid your dad is Jos Verstappen, who after every failure could smack you in the face. I wonder how many young drivers fell apart at this stage, and how many racing careers collapsed before they even began. But you're not like that. You're a world karting champion, a young star of motorsport. You've withstood competition among hundreds of your peers and are ready to move forward. But where? It's time to look for a place in some Formula Series, for example, in Regional Formula 4 Series. So they exist in Spain, Great Britain, Italy, and other countries. There's, for example, the popular Formula Renault Series with different classes of cars. Vitaly Petrov started in one of these series. Before transitioning to a Formula Series, especially with serious results in karting, you'll possibly already be noticed by some sponsor or academy. But this is by no means guaranteed. Therefore, your parents need to stand firmly on their feet and be ready to increase investments in your racing career. The cost of a season in regional formula can easily exceed €500,000. Several seasons, and that's already over $1 million. After regional formula, it's time to look for a place in Formula 3. If your parents are very confident, you can buy or invest in some team. If you're a young talent, then by that time, you'll most likely have support from somewhere. Ultimately, the thickness of your parents' wallet and your sponsors will directly affect the effectiveness of your career development. The more you invest in a particular car, the faster your skill grows. If there are no money problems, you can afford more tests, more training, more sets of tires, more crashed cars, better mechanics and trainers. And if you have just enough money to barely pay for a season with a minimum set of spare parts, then whether you want to or not, you'll lose to drivers with greater opportunities. In fact, an average driver, but with greater training opportunities, will ultimately, due to more time spent behind the wheel, surpass even a thrice-talented driver who doesn't have the opportunity for constant training. Yes, such are the harsh laws of motorsport. A season in Formula 3 can already cost over €1 million. Formula 2 is several times more expensive. But Formula 2 is already one step away from the coveted Formula 1. But it's not that simple. If you made it to Formula 2, then behind you are either very rich parents or sponsors, or a very rich team like Ferrari, Red Bull, or Alpine Academy. But how do you get into Formula 1? You probably need to win the F2 title. But as practice shows, this will of course be pleasant for you as a driver, but it's by no means mandatory. There's no universal way to get into Formula 1. The simplest option is for your dad to buy some F1 racing team and put you in it as a driver. The scheme generally works, but requires several €100 million of investment, which may not pay off. Well, and if we speak sensibly, investing in some team, you hope to get dividends not only from your son's performances. There's a slightly cheaper option. Just buy a seat without buying the whole team. The scheme also works, but you need to understand that even among pay drivers, there's great competition. Plus, if you bought a seat, it doesn't mean they won't demand results from you. If you cost the team much more than it gets from you, you'll quickly be replaced with a more reliable driver. If you're an incredibly young talent who destroyed everyone in karting and lower Formula Series, there's a chance to break through some racing academy. But the competition here is tough. You'll have to work hard. Talent alone won't be enough. You'll have to live racing and ideally have your dad beat you up for every defeat. By the way, a racing academy is not a panacea. Not everyone from there gets to Formula 1. Even if all the stars align, a seat, as you can see, might simply not be available. You can try to enter Formula 1 through a passport. Well, like maybe you have some citizenship that's needed by organizers, or some legendary surname. At the same time, no one cancels skills and speed. No one will invest in a driver who doesn't bring dividends, whatever surname they have. As you can see, even with money, talent, and victories in all possible racing series, it's by no means certain that you'll be able to become an F1 driver, and all the millions invested in you will go down the drain. We see 20 of the best drivers on our screens, but we don't see hundreds and thousands of talented drivers who didn't reach the top. However, if you sincerely love racing, maybe you don't need Formula One. There are a huge number of racing series, both Formula and Touring Car, where a huge number of talented drivers compete. If you're a good driver, you won't be out of work. You can always find yourself a partner like Romain Grosjean and go compete in endurance races for Lamborghini team. Yes, as a last resort, there's always Canyon Cup in Lotus in Kazan. In the end, even if you never had the opportunity to try yourself in motorsport and a racing career was always a pipe dream. Nowadays, there's nothing easier than becoming a virtual racer and doing sim racing. The main thing is that inside you, there's a love for cars and racing. Huge thanks for watching, and as always, live technically.